The courtroom went silent so fast it felt like someone had unplugged the entire room. Darlene Voss, 46 years old, dressed in a crisp white blouse and a disability rights advocate, leaned forward in her chair, lifted her chin toward the bench, and smiled like she had already won. "Judge," she said, loud enough for the microphones, "you're doing that thing again where you confuse your attitude with authority. Maybe take a breath before you embarrass yourself on television." A few people in the audience actually flinched, not because the words were clever, but because they were reckless. "There's a line you don't cross in any courtroom, TV or not," and Darlene crossed it like she was testing how far she could push before the room. Judge Evelyn Crane didn't react the way Darlene expected. No shouting, no theatrics, no warnings. She placed her pen down, folded her hands, and looked at Darlene the way a surgeon looks at a tumor on an X-ray. No emotion, just recognition. Double quotes, "Ms. Voss," Judge Crane said calmly, "I'm not embarrassed. I'm concerned." Darlene scoffed. "About what?" Judge Crane held eye contact. "About how comfortable you've become lying." The plaintiff's table was a different kind of tense. Reena Patel sat beside her husband, Arjun, with a folder pressed to her chest like armor. Her lipstick was a shade too pale, her hands trembling in small bursts she couldn't stop. She kept glancing at the judge as if she couldn't fully believe someone might finally listen, because for the last 9 months, Reena and Arjun hadn't just been defending a business. They'd been defending their dignity. Their bakery, Saffron and Stone, wasn't fancy. Not the kind of place influencers discover and move on from. It was warm, honest, a family business built from 16-hour shifts into years of sleeping in a one-bedroom apartment with flour dust in their laundry. Reena had arrived in the U.S. at 28 with a culinary certificate, a recipe notebook from her mother, and a promise she made to herself: build something nobody could take away. Then Darlene Voss showed up and made it her mission to prove that promise wrong. On paper, this case looks simple. Darlene claimed she had been discriminated against at Saffron and Stone because of her disability and her service animal. She demanded $60,000 for emotional distress, humiliation, and denial of equal access. Reena said that wasn't what happened, not even close. But the case wasn't really about what happened. Inside the bakery, it was about what happened. After within 48 hours of Darlene's visit, Saffron and Stone's online rating dropped like a stone in water. 1-star reviews poured in from brand new accounts. Ableist. Unsafe. They hate disabled customers. Don't support discrimination. The words were almost identical, like copies of the same script. Then came the emails. Then the complaint filings. Then the consumer advocate blog post featuring Darlene's edited footage, framed like an exposed. And finally, the demand letter, delivered with a deadline designed to keep Reena panicked. Pay $18,000 within 72 hours, or the lawsuit would be filed and local media contacted. Reena's lawyer told her what small business owners hear every day when the truth is expensive. It might cost you more to fight than to settle. That advice almost broke her, because it meant the system didn't reward innocence. It rewarded surrender. Reena came home that night and cried so hard she couldn't breathe. Not because she thought she'd lose, because she knew she could win and still lose everything before anyone ever ruled in her favor. Arjun sat on the floor beside her and did what he always did when she spiraled. He made a plan. "Tell me exactly what she said," he asked. Reena wiped her face. She kept pushing. She wanted me to say the words, "We won't serve you." She wanted it on camera. Arjun didn't say anything for a moment. Then he opened his laptop and typed Darlene Voss's name. What he found didn't look like a single dispute, though it looked like a pattern. Different businesses, different towns, same accusation: denial of service, disability discrimination, service animal conflict. Same timeline, same settlement range, same sudden review bombing, and at the bottom of one thread, a comment from an owner who had already paid her. She doesn't want access. She wants leverage. That was the moment Saffron and Stone stopped being a bakery problem and became something darker. Arjun contacted other business owners, a family-run salon in Newark, a corner cafe in Edison, a gym in Elizabeth, people who sounded exhausted even when they tried to speak calmly. They all described the same thing. Darlene arrived with her phone ready, provoked a situation, created a clip, then detonated a public pressure campaign so fast it felt coordinated. One owner admitted, voice shaking, "I paid her because my kids needed food more than my pride needed justice." Rena listened to that call and felt something inside her harden. She wasn't angry at the owner. She understood. She was angry at the fact that fear had become a business model. That's when they hired an investigator, not to dig up dirt, but to find the truth that could survive a courtroom. And the investigator found things that made Rena's lawyer stop recommending settlement. First, Darlene's service animal didn't match a consistent pattern. Different dogs seen at different locations, different vest styles. One had a brand new patch, still creased from packaging. Not proof of fraud by itself, but enough to question the performance. Then came the real shock, a payment trail connecting the review accounts to a small digital reputation marketing service. And that marketing service had a repeated client, a consulting email that included Darlene's name. Arjun stared at the printouts and asked the investigator, "Are you saying she paid for the reviews?" The investigator didn't overpromise. He never did. "I'm saying the same network that attacked your rating has been used after her complaints in other cases. And I'm saying the payment patterns are consistent." Consistent with what? Rena asked quietly. The investigator met her eyes. Consistent with manufacturing pressure. That's how their case ended up on a television arbitration show. Not because Rena wanted cameras. Because cameras make liars miscalculate. Cameras turn private bullying into public evidence, but Darlene Voss walked into the courtroom believing the opposite. She believed cameras were her weapon. She believed Judge Crane would be another authority figure she could bait, accuse, and bulldoze into a settlement. She believed her advocate image, her pins, her hashtags. Her trembling voice on cue would intimidate everyone into backing down. She even brought a rolling bag full of paperwork like a prop, medical letters, incident reports, printed ADA guidance pages highlighted in neon, and she had her attorney, Craig Melton, with her in an expensive suit with tired eyes. The kind of lawyer who didn't look proud, just practice. Judge Crane opened the proceedings without warmth or hostility, just precision. "Ms. Voss," she said, "you were suing Saffron and Stone for $60,000. Explain what happened." Darlene lifted her head, switched on her performance, voice soft, wounded, righteous. "I went in to buy a cake for my niece," she said. "My service dog was with me. The owner looked at me, looked at my dog, and told me I was a problem. She said she wouldn't risk contamination. I was humiliated in front of customers. I felt unsafe. I left in tears." Rena's mouth opened in disbelief. She looked at Judge Crane, then at Darlene like she was watching someone steal her life with a smile. Judge Crane didn't respond yet. She listened, writing nothing. That silence when a judge doesn't take notes is terrifying, because it means they're watching you, not your paperwork. Darlene finished and added, "And before you ask, yes, I know my rights. I've been doing this a long time." Judge Crane finally picked up her pen. "A long time," she repeated, as if tasting the phrase. Then she asked almost casually, "How many times have you sued a business for disability discrimination, Miss Voss?" Darlene's eyes narrowed. "That's not relevant." Judge Crane didn't blink. "Answer the question." Darlene shifted in her seat, then smiled like she was about to turn the room against the judge. "This is exactly what I mean," she said, turning slightly toward the camera. "Instead of focusing on what they did, you're attacking me. It's unprofessional." Judge Crane's voice stayed low. "No, Ms. Voss, what's unprofessional is using civil rights language like a crowbar." Darlene's smile twitched, and then Judge Crane said the sentence that changed the temperature of the entire room. "Because I reviewed your history last night, and you didn't come here for access. You came here for money? Craig Melton's posture stiffened. Rena felt her heart pounding hard enough to hurt. Darlene forced a laugh. Oh, please. Judge Crane opened her folder thick. Tabbed, organized like a case built by someone who wasn't guessing. Let's start with the number. Judge Crane said dot, and the moment she looked down to read it. Darlene Voss, confident, arrogant, certain, finally looked like she understood she might be trapped. Asterisk. Judge Crane didn't rush. That was the scary part. She moved like someone who had already walked through every lie and counted where they ended. 34, Judge Crane said, reading from her file. That's the number of claims you've filed in 5 years, alleging disability discrimination or service animal denial. 34. Darlene's eyebrows shot up. That's impossible. Judge Crane's eyes lifted. Is it? Craig Melton cleared his throat. Your Honor, prior filings. Judge Crane cut him off without raising her voice. Mr. Melton, in my courtroom, a repeated pattern of the same allegation with the same pressure tactics is relevant. Darlene leaned forward, suddenly loud. So because I stand up for myself, I'm being punished? That's your angle? Great. Perfect. Another judge who hates disabled people. Rena flinched at the words. Not because they were about her, but because she recognized the strategy. Flip the room. Make the judge defensive. Make the business look guilty just for breathing. Judge Crane didn't defend herself. She didn't need to. I don't hate disabled people, Judge Crane said. I hate fraud. Darlene rolled her eyes dramatically, then looked toward the camera again. This is exactly why businesses keep getting away with discrimination. Judges like this. Judge Crane ignored the performance and turned to Rena. Mrs. Patel, she said. Tell me what happened the day Ms. Voss came into your bakery. Rena swallowed. Her voice came out shaky but clear. She came in filming already, Rena said. Not obvious, but I saw her phone angle. She said she needed a custom cake and she needed to bring her dog behind the counter to smell ingredients because she had a condition. Darlene snapped. That's a lie. Judge Crane lifted a finger. Darlene stopped mid-breath. Rena continued. I told her politely, the dog can be inside as a service animal, but it cannot come behind the counter because it's a food prep area. Health code. I offered to read ingredients, show labels, do anything. She wanted the dog behind the counter on video. Judge Crane asked, did you refuse to serve her? No, Rena said quickly. I offered 3 options. Pre-packaged items. Ingredient list. Custom order with full disclosure that we handle nuts in the kitchen. She kept asking me to say, no, we won't serve you. Darlene's face tightened. Because you were refusing. Rena's eyes wet. I was refusing one demand, not refusing service. Judge Crane nodded slowly, then turned to Darlene. Ms. Voss, you claim you were denied access. But Mrs. Patel says she offered alternatives. What did you accept? Darlene lifted her chin. I didn't accept segregation. If I can't get what everyone else gets, it's discrimination. Judge Crane's tone sharpened slightly. You don't get to demand that a small bakery violate health code so your dog can go behind the counter. Darlene scoffed. Oh my God, you people always hide behind health code? It's the oldest excuse. Judge Crane looked down at her notes. It's not an excuse. It's a rule. And rules don't disappear because you're loud. Then Judge Crane pressed a button. The screen behind the bench turned on, showing a pause frame from saffron and stone security footage. The bakery camera angle was wide and unflattering, no dramatic sound. No emotional close-ups, just a quiet truth. Rena inhaled sharply when she saw it. Darlene's phone was visible in the reflection of a glass display case camera on, angled upward. Judge Crane looked at Darlene. You said you were humiliated and denied service? That's what actually happened. The video played. Darlene entering with the dog, pausing as if waiting for a cue, then speaking louder than necessary. Rena staying calm. Rena pointing gently toward the customer area, explaining food safety. Darlene repeatedly trying to push the dog forward, and then the key moment, Darlene saying, clearly, just say you won't serve me. Say it, Rena replying, "Ma'am, I can serve you. I can't let the dog behind the counter." Darlene's voice, sharper now, "So you're refusing me?" Rena, "No, I'm refusing that request." Darlene's eyes flicked to the side. Like she'd remembered the presence of the camera. She was pretending wasn't there. Then she raised her voice. Everyone heard that. She said no. "This is discrimination." Judge Crane paused the video and faced the courtroom. "That," Judge Crane said, "is not a denial of service. That is a denial of an unreasonable demand." Darlene's lawyer leaned in and whispered urgently. Darlene pulled away, irritated, as if even being advised felt like disrespect. Judge Crane turned to Craig Melton. "Mr. Melton, does your client have documentation that this dog is a trained service animal?" Melton opened his folder. "Yes, Your Honor, we have a letter." Judge Crane didn't even reach for it. "A letter from whom?" Melton hesitated. "A provider." Judge Crane's eyebrows raised. "A provider? Or an online certificate?" Darlene snapped. "It's real. I don't have to prove anything." Judge Crane's voice stayed steady. "You do when you come into my courtroom demanding $60,000. The audience was locked in now, barely moving. The suspense wasn't about who was right. It was about how deep the wrong went. Judge Crane reached into her file and pulled out a printed document, an email chain. "Mrs. Patel," Judge Crane asked, "after the incident, did someone contact you offering to fix your online rating?" Rena blinked. "Yes, a man emailed us. Said he could remove negative reviews if we paid him." Judge Crane held up the email. From an account called Public Shield Media. Darlene's face changed for half a second. A small crack in the mask. Judge Crane looked at Darlene. "Do you know Public Shield Media?" Darlene laughed too quickly. "No," Judge Crane nodded. "Okay." Then she pressed another button. The screen changed to a payment record and electronic transfer, showing a recurring payment to Public Shield Media from an account labeled DV Consulting. Darlene's jaw clenched hard. Craig Melton's eyes widened slightly as he processed what he was looking at. It was the first time he looked like he wasn't sure which side he was standing on. Judge Crane spoke softly, but every word landed. "Ms. Voss, your review bombing happens after your complaints. And then the same entity that bombed the rating offers to repair it. And that entity receives recurring payments from your consulting account." Darlene snapped. "Coincidence?" Judge Crane didn't argue. She just asked, "How many coincidences make a pattern?" Rena felt her throat tighten. For months, she had tried to explain this to friends, to her landlord, to her bank, how it felt like coordinated pressure. People nodded politely, then suggested she settle and move on. Now the judge was saying it out loud. Judge Crane turned another page. "And then there's this," she said. She held up a screenshot of a private group post. The kind of thing people only write when they believe nobody important will ever read it. The post read, "If they refuse the dog behind the counter, call it public humiliation. It plays better. Don't let them offer alternatives. Keep forcing the no." Under it was a username partially blurred, but the profile picture was not Dot. It was Darlene Voss. Darlene surged forward. "That's fake. That's edited. That's not even..." Judge Crane raised her hand, and Darlene's voice died again in her throat. Not because she respected the judge, because the room had shifted and even she could feel it. Judge Crane said, "This is the moment where you decide whether you want to keep lying." Darlene's eyes flashed with anger. "You're attacking an advocate." Judge Crane answered calmly, "No, I'm exposing a bully." Then Judge Crane looked directly into the camera for the first time. "And to anyone watching, real disability rights matter. That's why what Ms. Voss appears to be doing is so serious." Darlene's face reddened. "Appears? So you're not sure?" Judge Crane nodded. "Oh, I'm sure enough to ask my next question." She turned to Darlene. "Where is your medical device?" Darlene blinked. "What?" Judge Crane repeated it slowly. "You claim a severe condition requiring constant alert support. Where is your emergency medication? Your EpiPen? Your alert equipment? Anything?" Darlene's mouth opened, closed, open again. I don't have it with me." Judge Crane stared for a beat, Then she said, "That's what I thought." Craig Melton leaned in again and whispered. Darlene ignored him. Judge Crane continued, voice even. "Miss Voss, you told this courtroom you feared for your life in that bakery. That you came here without the medication you'd carry if that were true." Darlene's eyes flicked to the audience, searching for sympathy. She didn't find it. Even people who wanted to believe her were getting tired of the holes in the story. Judge Crane reached for one final item in her file, and her tone changed, not louder, just sharper. Like a lock clicking into place. "I'm going to play a voicemail," Judge Crane said. "The voicemail you left Mrs. Patel after she refused your settlement?" Rena's stomach dropped. She remembered that message. She had listened to it twice and then couldn't listen again. It wasn't just a demand. It was a threat dressed up as help. Darlene's head jerked. "No, you can't." Judge Crane pressed play. Darlene's voice filled the courtroom, calm and confident. "Rena, listen. I'm trying to save you from yourself. If you fight, this gets ugly. Reviews are already moving. I can't stop what's coming unless you cooperate. Pay the number and I'll make it go away. If you don't, you'll learn what pressure feels like." The audio ended. For a second, nobody breathed. Even Craig Melton looked like someone had slapped him. Judge Crane looked at Darlene. "That," Judge Crane said, "is not negotiation." Darlene's voice cracked, defensive. "It's settlement talk." Judge Crane replied. "It's manufactured harm used as leverage." Then Judge Crane glanced toward the side, seating two quiet men in plain suits who had not clapped, not reacted, not moved all day. Darlene followed her gaze and finally realized what Rena had not noticed until now. They were audience. They were watching her like they already knew her. "Judge." Crane spoke the sentence that made Darlene's face drain of color. Double quotes, "Miss Voss," she said. "There are people in this room today who are not here for entertainment." And the moment Darlene opened her mouth to respond, Judge Crane added, "Because this case isn't just civil anymore." Asterisk. Darlene tried to laugh, but it came out thin. "Civil? Criminal? You're being dramatic," she said, shifting in her chair as if discomfort could rewrite reality. "This is a discrimination case. That's all it is." Judge Crane didn't argue. She didn't label. She just kept laying facts down like bricks. "Mr. Melton," Judge Crane said, turning slightly, "how long have you represented Miss Voss?" Craig Melton swallowed. "On and off for about 3 years." "And in that time," Judge Crane asked, "how many matters like this have you filed?" Melton hesitated, eyes flicking toward Darlene. "I don't have the number." Judge Crane nodded. "I do," she read from her notes. 21 demand letters. 12 file claims. 7 settlements that list confidentiality as a condition. Rena's breath caught. Confidentiality. That was the gag. That was how victims stayed isolated, ashamed, scared, legally bound to silence. Judge Crane looked at Darlene. "You don't want court rulings. You want quiet checks." Darlene's voice sharpened. "You're projecting." Judge Crane replied, "I'm reading." Then she pressed another button. The screen displayed a spreadsheet, names blurred, but columns visible. Business type, owner notes, settlement range, pressure plan. Review timing. Rena's mouth fell open. The spreadsheet looked like a targeting map. Like someone had taken human lives and reduced them to leverage points, Judge Crane said. This spreadsheet was provided to the court through a sworn statement from a former contractor. Darlene snapped. "Stolen." Judge Crane's tone hardened for the first time. "Legally obtained." Then she read one line aloud. "Saffron and Stone, immigrant owners. High community reliance, likely to settle fast if reviews hit." Rena's eyes filled. Arjun stared down at the table, jaw tight with controlled rage. Darlene's face flushed. "What's fake? Anyone can type anything." Judge Crane didn't blink. Then explained the next exhibit. The screen changed again, this time to surveillance footage. Not from the bakery, but from a big box store parking lot 2 days before Darlene's bakery incident. Darlene, walking briskly, carrying heavy grocery bags in both hands. No limp, no hesitation. Her dog different from the one in the bakery footage trotting beside her. Judge Crane said, You told this court you require constant alert support and strict controlled environments. Yet you shop, move, and handle items without any visible limitation while switching between animals. Darlene barked a laugh. Disability doesn't have to look like you want it to look. Judge Crane nodded. True. Then she added, fraud does. Craig Melton's face was tight now, like he was watching his ship sink and calculating how far he'd have to swim. Judge Crane leaned forward slightly. Miss Voss, how many different service animals do you currently use? Darlene's eyes darted. That's none of your business. Judge Crane answered calmly. It becomes my business when you use it to demand money. Darlene's voice rose. You don't get to interrogate me like this. Judge Crane replied, I do when you file a claim. Darlene's hands trembled as she tried to keep her posture. She turned toward the camera again, desperate to flip the narrative. Look at this, she said. This judge is attacking a disabled woman because a business cried on cue. Rena's head snapped up. I did not cry on cue. Judge Crane lifted her hand. Mrs. Patel, you don't have to defend your emotion. Then she looked back at Darlene. But Miss Voss, your on-cue comment is interesting. Darlene glared. What's that supposed to mean? Judge Crane tapped her file. It means I watched your prior videos. Darlene went still. Judge Crane continued. You run a social media account where you post encounters and ask followers to hold businesses accountable. In multiple clips, your phone is already recording before you walk in. In multiple clips, the same phrases show up. Humiliated, unsafe, denied equal access. Judge Crane paused, and in one clip, you said something you probably thought nobody important would ever hear. Darlene's voice came out sharp. What clip? Judge Crane pressed play. The screen showed Darlene in a car, talking into her front-facing camera, smirking like she was sharing a clever tip. Never argue the law, Darlene said in the video. Argue the optics. Make them say no. Once you get the no, they'll pay to make you disappear. That's the whole game. The clip ended. Rena stared at the screen like she was watching a predator explain how she hunts. Judge Crane didn't gloat. She didn't smile. She simply let the silence do what silence does. Make truth heavier than denial. Darlene's voice cracked. That's taken out of context. Judge Crane responded instantly. What context makes that acceptable? Craig Melton stood again, voice strained. Your Honor, my client is being... Judge Crane cut him off. Mr. Melton, sit down. Melton froze, then sat. His shoulders sagged like he'd aged 10 years. Darlene's eyes burned. She had tried sympathy. She had tried outrage. She had tried accusing the judge, so she did what people do when they're cornered. And proud, she went for humiliation. You're loving this, Darlene said, voice dripping with contempt. You're one of those women who peaked decades ago, and now takes it out on everyone from the bench. You're not even listening, you're performing. You need a villain for your little TV moment. The audience made a sound half shock, half disgust. Judge Crane didn't move. Darlene pushed harder, intoxicated by her own disrespect. Maybe get off the bench and let someone who understands modern rights handle this. Because you're clearly out of touch. And that was the moment the room fully turned against her, not because she insulted the judge, but because she revealed what she really believed, that this was a stage, and the judge was just another obstacle to manipulate. Judge Crane's voice lowered. Colder than before, Miss Voss, she said. You've just made a mistake you can't edit out. Darlene sneered. Oh, please. Judge Crane looked toward the side seating. For the record, she said, the Consumer Fraud Division has been observing this proceeding. One of the men in the plain suit stood. Not dramatically, just professionally. Darlene's eyes widened. Judge Crane continued. And they have requested the exhibits shown today, including the payment logs, the contractor affidavit, the review coordination evidence, and the recorded threats. Darlene's confidence finally cracked. You can't, this is a civil matter. Judge Crane replied, extortion is not civil. Rena's breath caught. Arjun squeezed her hand hard. Judge Crane delivered her ruling like a door slamming shut quick. Final clean, Miss Voss. Your claim is dismissed with prejudice. Darlene's head jerked. No. Judge Crane continued over her, voice firm. Judgment for Saffron and Stone on their counterclaim. Mrs. Patel, you documented $17,800 in revenue loss attributable to the review attack, $6,200 in legal and consulting expenses, and $3,500 in emergency marketing to stabilize your rating. Total compensatory damages, $27,500. Darlene's mouth fell open. Judge Crane added, punitive damages for malicious conduct, $20,000. Rena gasped softly. Tears fell, not loud, not dramatic, just relief finally escaping her body. Judge Crane finished. Total award, $47,500. Darlene stood abruptly, chair scraping. This is insane. She shouted. This is bias. This is... Judge Crane's voice cut through the noise. Sit down. Darlene didn't. She pointed a finger at the judge, shaking with rage. You're ruining my life. Judge Crane looked at her, unblinking. No, Miss Voss, she said. You built your life on ruining other people's. The man from Consumer Fraud took a small step forward, not threatening. Just present, Miss Voss, he said. We need you to come with us to discuss some matters. Darlene's eyes darted toward her lawyer. Craig Milton looked like he couldn't decide whether to stand or disappear. Darlene's voice went small for the first time. Am I being arrested? The agent didn't answer on camera. He only said, step this way. Darlene swallowed hard, then did something that would have been unthinkable 2 hours earlier. She complied. As she walked toward the exit, she turned her head toward the camera, trying to reclaim control with one last line. Asterisk. This is what happens when you fight for your rights, she said, voice trembling. They punish you. Judge Crane's reply came immediately, calm and lethal. No. Ms. Voss, this is what happens when you sow fear and call it rights. The bailiff opened the door. And just before Darlene disappeared into the hallway, Judge Crane looked down at her file and said one last sentence, quiet enough to sound casual, heavy enough to sound like a warning. And Miss Voss, you might want to call your accountant. Asterisk. The hallway outside the studio courtroom wasn't loud. There were no TV sound effects out there, no audience reaction, no dramatic music to tell you how to feel, just fluorescent lights, quiet footsteps, and the sound of Darlene Voss breathing too fast as she realized the world she controlled with threats didn't work on people who collected receipts. Rena and Arjun didn't see what happened next, not in full. They only saw Darlene's back as she was guided away, her shoulders rigid, her hands clenched like she was still trying to hold onto a script that had stopped working. Inside the courtroom, Rena sat frozen for a few seconds after the verdict. Her mind couldn't catch up with her body. For months, she had lived in brace position, waiting for the next attack, another review wave, another complaint email, another demand letter. Asterisk. Now the judge had said it out loud. Malicious conduct, extortion, fraud. Judge Crane looked at Rena, her voice softening just a fraction. Mrs. Patel, she said, you did the right thing by not paying. Rena's lips trembled. It felt like the wrong thing every day. Asterisk. Judge Crane nodded once. That's how pressure works. Arjun let out a long breath and whispered, thank you. Judge Crane didn't respond with sentiment. She responded with instruction, the kind that actually helps. Keep every email, she said. Keep every voicemail. Keep the review timestamps. And when other business owners contact you, and they will tell them to do the same. Rena's eyebrows lifted. Other owners? Judge Crane closed her file. Fraud doesn't happen once. The episode aired 3 weeks later. At first, the clip that spread wasn't even the spreadsheet or the threat voicemail. It was Darlene's moment of disrespect when she tried to humiliate Judge Crane like she had humiliated small business owners for years. Viewers didn't just dislike her. They recognized her. Not personally, pattern-wise. People in the comments started connecting dots in real time. She did this to my aunt's salon. Same review bombing. Same wording. I paid her in 2022 because I couldn't afford a lawyer. Wait. The rating repair email, I got that too. For the first time, victims who had been isolated by shame and confidentiality started comparing notes publicly. Some were still afraid of legal consequences, but many weren't under gag clauses because not every business had signed, and not every settlement was drafted tightly, and once enough people started talking, the thing Darlene relied on most silence disappeared within a month. The State Consumer Fraud Division opened a formal investigation, not just into Darlene, but into her network, the digital service connected to review attacks, the consumer blog that published hit pieces, the document preparer tied to suspicious medical letters. Craig Milton, her attorney, became a question too. Not automatically guilty, but no longer invisible. Investigators wanted to know what he knew, when he knew it, and how many times he used the same package of language to pressure settlements. The IRS got involved after that one sentence Judge Crane delivered on camera. Call your accountant. Because the money trail wasn't just civil. It was financial. Over 2 years, Darlene had received multiple settlement payments through different accounts, labeled as consulting fees and advocacy compensation. She didn't call them settlements. She called them resolution payments, then treated them like they didn't exist at tax time. The first indictment didn't happen. Quickly, real life never moves like television. It took months of subpoenas, interviews, and digital forensic work. But when it landed like a hammer. Darlene Voss was charged with multiple counts related to fraud and extortion. The complaint referenced coordinated harassment campaigns designed to coerce payment. It referenced fabricated documentation submitted to support false claims. It referenced repeat targeting of small businesses, particularly immigrant-owned enterprises, exploiting fear of reputational harm. Rena read the news on her phone in the bakery kitchen and started crying again quietly, with flour on her hands because it wasn't joy. It was release. It was the first time she felt the system had seen her as a person, not a headline risk. Saffron and Stone didn't become a viral brand overnight. They didn't want that kind of attention. What they wanted was normal. And slowly, normal returned. Their rating climbed back up as real customers posted real reviews. Kind owners, honest about allergens, clean, warm, welcoming. The loud, coordinated one-star wave got buried under the simple truth of everyday business. One day, a woman walked in wearing a mobility brace and holding a service dog's leash proper harness. Calm behavior, trained focus. Rena's chest tightened for a second, pure reflex. The woman smiled gently. I saw your episode, she said. I'm sorry for what happened to you. Rena nodded, fighting tears. Thank you, the woman added, and I'm glad you made it clear. Service animals belong here. Scams don't. That sentence mattered more to Rena than any viral comment, because it reminded her of something she hated that Darlene almost stole. Compassion. Darlene's scam worked because she weaponized real struggles. The fallout didn't just hurt businesses, it risked making people suspicious of legitimate disability needs. Rena refused to let that happen. She updated her staff training. She printed clear signage about service animals and food safety. She documented protocols in plain language. She learned how to protect her business without becoming cold. Arjun started helping other owners in their community quietly, practically showing them how to document threats, how to preserve evidence, how to respond without panic. He didn't turn it into a brand. He turned it into a habit. Don't let bullies isolate you. 6 months after the episode aired, Saffron and Stone hosted a small community night. Nothing fancy. Free chai samples, discounted pastries, a jar labeled Legal Aid Fund for immigrant business owners facing harassment. People donated more than Rena expected, not because they loved drama, because they were tired of predators. In the end, what made this story satisfying wasn't that scammer got exposed. It was that a couple who had been told over and over, just pay and move on, decided they deserved better than survival. They deserved justice. And Judge Crane, with nothing more than calm questions and hard evidence, proved a simple truth that every bully hates. Pressure only works when you panic. Rena walked up the bakery one night and stood in the quiet for a moment, listening to the hum of the refrigerator, the soft ticking of the wall clock, the ordinary sounds she almost lost. Arjun asked, "Are you okay?" Rena nodded. "I think so." Then she looked at him and said, "She picked the wrong family." Arjun smiled faintly. "No, she picked the right one, because the right one fought back, and somewhere in a file cabinet at a state office, Darlene Voss's pressure plan had been replaced with something she couldn't manipulate. A case number dot if you want. I can write another related 4-part case with a different scam angle. Fake slip and fall, fake accessibility ramp extortion, fake service dog harassment, while keeping the same judge-style suspense and emotional pace.